All right, good morning, emerging leaders. I'm going to walk you through the assignment for today and then later this week because, again, it's another two-parter, but I'm trying to break these things up a little bit so they're not overwhelming. And not only do you make your initial response, but then you respond to your classmates. So what we're going to do today is we're actually going to do this assignment down here called Ethics Revisiting the Leader Actions. If you remember from last semester, we decided if someone was a good or a bad leader based off of just one thing that was presented about them. And then we had a discussion, and you guys answered some questions about whether or not someone was a good leader based off of those things. And you did it blindly first. And then once you figured out who was attributed with each thing, you got to talk about it a little bit more in depth. So we're going to revisit that assignment briefly. We're not doing the entire three-part thing, but with ethics. And we've been talking a lot about ethics over the last few class sessions. So we're going to take that a little further and relate it to some leaders that we've had here in the United States and across the world. So you'll find this ethics revisiting leader actions, good or bad assignment in the ethics unit for this class. I've added a little bit of direction here, which I'm going to let you go through and read, but basically it just says that it's a two-parter. So you're going to start with the Google Doc today, and you'll do that one and submit it actually by Thursday night. So it gives you plenty of time to look at it, and then you'll do the responses by kind of like over the weekend if you want to, but I'm probably going to give you till Monday because that's when we have this class again to get your responses done, just to sort of spread this out to not overwhelm anyone. So once you open up the document, you'll see there are instructions at the top, and essentially it just says that we are going to revisit the leaders that we've already talked about. You're going to choose 5 people from the list. There are 30, and you're going to look a little more in depth about them. I'm not looking for like a full research paper, but I want you to kind of Google them a little bit. If you choose Martin Luther King Jr., for instance, I realize you'll probably start off with like Wikipedia, you'll Google pages about him, you'll read a little bit about him and who he was. We all know he was a civil rights activist and that he did a lot of really great things for Black people in our nation, and it sort of inspired a lot of actions, I guess, throughout the world. But some little known things where there's some allegations that he was cheating on his wife while some of this stuff was going on, or that he could be sometimes a difficult person to, I guess, get along with. Some of his actions weren't always what people wanted to see happen, and he was pretty disliked actually through most of his career, primarily because he was a civil rights activist who was fighting against the status quo, but there were some other reasons that people didn't always agree with the things that he was doing, or they didn't agree with the way that he was handling a situation. So it'll be interesting to see if you guys research that, what you can find out about him. Or if you take Obama, for instance, he was our president and is pretty well liked by people in the Democratic side of things, but not everybody likes him. Sometimes it's for political views, sometimes it's for more personal views. The the instance that was listed here was that he proposed the Affordable Care Act, and a lot of people really praised that act because it provided insurance for people who had been previously uninsured. But there's also a lot of people who have problems with the fact that, you know, he raised the national debt, or that there were some issues socially between people, or racially between people during his presidency that went unaddressed, or that the drone was sent and or people were sent, I guess, on the ground when during his presidency, and that's when Osama bin Laden was killed. So there's some disagreement about whether or not that should have happened. So does one of those ethical decisions make him good or bad? Do we have to look at the sum of the person in order to decide if someone's a good leader or a bad leader, if they're a good person or a bad person, or if they're ethical? One last example you could use here would be, um, oh, I guess we could look at JFK, another president. His administration was had high tensions during with communist states during the Cold War, and that led to stuff like the Bay of Pigs and a lot of difficulty with Cuba that the United States has experienced. But generally speaking, JFK is seen as a relatively good president, and people looked up to him and they felt that he was a good leader and he was charismatic and that he provided a lot of really great things for the United States. There's other issues with his personal life that people had problems with, accusations or allegations that he was involved with other women outside of his marriage. Again, is that an ethical decision that makes up who he is? So you're gonna basically look for these things, and you're going to sort of do a little bit of research and find out about 5 of the people on this list. So you're not doing all 30. I'm not telling you which of the people you have to look at. There are the 30. Actually, I guess there are 32 people listed that you are welcome to research, and then you're going to the second part is that you're going to find out the information and you're going to list or create a list of about 8 to 10 things. I don't just want like past several laws. I want there to be some specificity to the things that you find, because it's going to make the second part easier. Plus, it'll show me that you actually put some effort into looking up these people. But you'll make a list of 8 to 10 things that you found about the person, and you'll write out a sentence um, about what that thing was. So if you have MLK Jr., for instance, 8 to 10 things about him in a sentence that just say, like, he did this, he passed this law, he believed this thing. You're talking about ethics that they hold, decisions that they made, um, or whatever it is that sort of tell us who this person was. Then, when you get finished looking at your 5 people and putting together your list of 8 to 10 for each of them, at the very bottom of the document, there are 3 questions. And I just want to talk about these briefly. You're going to answer each one of the questions, referring back to some of the research. So the first question says, does one ethical or unethical decision ultimately cast you as a good or bad leader? And so I would say that if you were to choose, mm, let's see here. Like, if you decide you're going to talk about Trump, for instance, there are 2 different things given about Trump. One is the space exploration, and one is the eliminating acceptance of transgender people in the military. Well, that's 2 different decisions that you already have provided to you. Does the fact that he didn't want transgender people in the military make him a bad leader? Or does it have to be the whole sum of experiences from this person? Because we know that oftentimes leaders are looked at for their particular decisions, but when we look back at someone's life, are they a good or bad leader based off of all of the things that they did? For instance, another example for that Another example might be Gandhi, for instance, and you can see right here that he was part of racially stereotyping African Americans, and exploiting people, not African Americans, Africans, during his time working throughout the world for bringing peace and justice for people. Um, so that action is obviously not okay, and it's a huge issue with the way that he composed himself and the way that he acted. Um, does it make him a good or bad leader? Does the fact that he had this thing that he did, um, does that define who he is? So I'm asking you guys to make that decision. And so you'll answer the 3 questions, and I want you to, a few times at least, reference the people that you looked up. So for number 2, are leaders defined by one decision or one act? And should they be? And then for number 3, what are the traits that good leaders share? And you might list, a few of those and say, this person, and this person all shared this, and sort of be specific about that. So that's the first part of the assignment. The second part would be later this week. You're going to take one example of a person that you researched. So you're going to choose the top one of your 5 that you looked at, and you're going to put it into a discussion board, and there will be some questions and things for you to follow up with your classmates about the people that they chose and the actions that you were able to find that they participated in. So that is the lesson for today, keeping in mind the essential question that, like, what traits or actions do we have and the effect that on the decision making that we make. So you're looking at, ethics and traits and decisions and how that defines who you are. So Anyway, that's the assignment for today. If you have questions, let me know. This isn't due immediately tonight, so you should have plenty of time to work on it, but um, go ahead and get it opened up and get started. That way you know what you're doing, and if you do run into any issues, you can let me know. All right, have a great day.